Join us for the very first IFL Live at London's Indigo at the O2, Sunday, August the 13th, with me, Kugan Cassius, and some very special guests. Eddie Hearn, Darren Barker, Johnny Fisher and more. Tickets now on sale. So in the words of Eddie Hearn,
you get up, you dress up, and you fucking show up.
This is Colin McGuigan for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. Delighted to be joined by Francisco Smith in Monterrey. Frank, first of all, adding another city to the matchroom list. Is that something that you want to continuously do here?
Yeah, we're just going for an endless amount of cities that we can go to and just going to go everywhere and do as many shows as possible. So no, it's good to come to different places. Monterrey is, having spent just about 8 hours here, looks like a beautiful place. Can't say I've explored too much yet, but we'll get out there and it's going to be a great atmosphere on Friday night actually. Friday show. Nearly made a mistake there, didn't I?
You're going to have to prepare that for your Spanish speech up here because you've probably only learned to say it on Saturday, right?
No, but Eddie said, because we've been learning our Spanish, obviously, Eddie said, are you going to give it a crack? I was like, nah, because I just don't feel comfortable. Like, bienvenido a la Monterrey, Mexico, para una noche enorme de boxeo. Something like that.
You've actually done all right there,
I mean, I think, look, I've got to be honest, for a chubby kid from Essex, that doesn't sound too bad.
I think you've smashed it, mate.
Thanks, man.
Let's talk first of all about Diego Pacheco, headlining his own card in his parents' home country. How big is this for him, and what kind of does this lead on to in the future for Diego Pacheco?
Yeah, look, massive. Diego Pacheco is a superstar in the making. He's been with us since he was 17 years old. I think he's 22 now. We just signed a new long-term deal with him, 18-0, coming off the back of a great win in going over to Liverpool and that performance against Jack Cullen. I think Friday night, I nearly said Saturday again, Friday night's another moment in that, in that journey of the growth and building. He's in the top 15 of all 4 governing bodies now, Diego, and he wants to move very quickly. At the same time, he's 22 years old, so you got to pace it at the right time. But he has got the ability to become, a huge star in this sport. He's building a great fan base, and Friday's test is he's gonna keep developing him and evolving him, and it's the kind of fights he needs. And like I say, coming off the back of a second time he's headlined now. We're planning to headline him back in the US later this year as well, all being well. So it's good. It's good to keep building and developing.
I don't want to fast forward too much, but Diego Pacheco against Gallegos is a step up again from Jack Cullen. But after this fight, not looking past Gallegos because he's a really game opponent, can we be looking towards maybe the likes of John Ryder, Edgar Berlanga, guys that you work with currently, even Golovkin?
Look, I think they're the kind of fights, like some of those names you mentioned there for 2024, if I'm honest. Like I say, he's very highly ranked at WBO. I think he's number 3 already now in the WBO rankings, just behind Andrade and one other. But I think those kind of names you mentioned are more likely later 2024. Like I say, he's 22 years old. We don't need to rush him, and we want to ensure he can develop in the right manner so that when he steps up to those level of fights, he's ready. I'm not saying he's not ready now, but there's no point rushing it.
What about the likes of, Jason Quigley, Potty McCrory? Are they maybe fights for the end of 2023?
Yeah, possibly for sure. We're looking at some other names now for his fight back in the US, but yeah, there are definitely names that are in there potentially for this sort of November time. But he's got to focus on Friday night first, and it's not a walk in the park. He's got to get through with a big performance and then focus on what's next.
We've got Eddie Hearn's namesake on this card, Eduardo Rocky Hernandez. Was a good one, wasn't it? Yeah. If Eduardo Hernandez is on this card, this is basically his matchroom debut, right? I think he fought before, but he wasn't a matchroom signing at that time. How excited are you to see him in action at matchroom?
Yeah, look, for sure. He's been, I think, on 2 of our cards before this, as you say, just signed with Matchroom. He's a tremendous talent, hence why we signed him. Very highly ranked, and I think he's going to step on quickly. So we're excited to get started with him. And this will be, again, he'll get this outing here, another one before the end of the year, and lots to look forward to with him because he's not far off from challenging for a world title.
Moving on to Detroit next week. How's tickets been there? Because we know there was a bit of back and forth with the Salida Promotions show that was on Detroit. We've seen some comments online about that show not selling great, and then it did sell great. How's tickets been for Matchroom for this one?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's going to pick up as well in the next couple of weeks. We've got just under 2 weeks to go now. It's going to pick up, but we'll have a sold-out show. Look, it's not a massive building. We've got, I think it's about 4,000 people that venue holds. But I think you're going to have a great atmosphere in there. We had a Jermaine Franklin as well as Alicia. Andy Cruz's professional debut on that show as well. So, I'm confident we'll have a packed out arena next Saturday in Detroit.
Hitchens Love came off that card due to an injury to Montana Love. Do you have any more on that?
No, look, he's injured. He's out for a little bit. We're hoping to reschedule that fight for September. Very confident that will get over the line and done. It's a great fight. It's a shame for the card, but fortunately, as I say, we added Jermaine Franklin on, a local star, and he's coming off the back of two tough fights against Dillian Whyte and Anthony Joshua. He's built a bit of a name for himself now, so good to get him back up and running. But yeah, we'll get the Montana Love Richards and Hitchens fight back up and running for September time, I'd say.
What card does that land on in September then? Is that going to be likely the Dimitri Bivol card? Is that going in September?
We're just looking into the potential now with Dimitri, but that is one of our focuses to try and get him out in September time. He's back in camp now, or just starting back in camp, so we're just looking at the time frames. Hopefully news soon on that.
More likely to land in Chicago or Las Vegas?
Probably Chicago out of those cards, but there is also the opportunity maybe to headline it in some way as well, so let's see.
In terms of Dimitri Bivol, likely opponent next?
Look, the reality is the light heavyweight division is tough. He's beaten a lot of the names already. His focus is to become undisputed champion, which is, the winner of Callum Smith and Artur Beterbiev, which is August 19th. We're looking at names now. We had some discussions with, Dan Aziz, but I think he's going to take the Boatsi fight now. I still quite like if there's any way of making the Yard fight. But I'm not sure how possible that's going to be. We're just going back and forward at the minute. But like I say, it's a limited lot of names for this fight now, ahead of the focus of the big one, sort of early part of next year or towards the end of this year.
You touched on Aziz Boatsi. Aziz Boatsi's, in terms of what you've spoke about before, wanting to sign Dan Aziz, why do you think that he's chose the Boatsi route instead of signing Matchroom and Bivol?
I'm not sure. But I spoke to him. I was always quite open, even when we had discussions. I said, even if this doesn't work out, hopefully you can get a few extra quid for that fight. And I think he did. So, it was only very brief discussions. He was quite deep already. He hadn't signed anything, and he's not signed to Boxer. He wasn't signed to Boxer. I saw some comments about it. But, we wanted to offer the opportunity to fight for the world title. But look, if that's, he's got his sights set on fighting Boatsi, maybe that's what he wants to do.
AJ Whyte, it's a never-ending question over the past few weeks with you, and I feel like every time we spoke, it's like 24 hours. Where are we at now, Frank? Is it actually 24 hours? Is it done?
24 hours.
You can't help me with that.
Give me 24 hours and then we'll know. But it's 24 hours away from the next 24 hours, from the next 24 hours. But we're very close. We're very close to what's going on and the announcement for August 12th. And we should have news very soon, I hope.
Is it likely that it is done and it is going to be Dillian Whyte and not the two other opponents that you have been speaking about?
Let's wait and see. It's been like that. It's been an up and down roller coaster, hasn't it, for the last 2 weeks? So rather than say something and not deliver it, let's wait and see what happens.
If it is done in the next 24 hours, will you do then a press tour before the Detroit show next week? Go back to the UK for a few days and do that with Dillian and AJ, or what would be the plan there?
Yeah, whatever we get done for AJ's next fight, the plan would be to do a press tour or press conference next week for sure.
Okay, so I think you've pretty much confirmed it there for me. We'll move on from that one. Liam Smith, Chris Eubank, we've heard, Bench Lums basically said that it's happening. Liam Smith then came out and said he thinks it's happening. Eddie said in an interview he doesn't think it's happening. What's Frank Smith's opinion on that one?
Nothing's happening until it's signed. You've heard from one side, Boxer are desperate to deliver a pay-per-view, understandably. They've done one this year. They need to deliver a pay-per-view fight. Liam Smith and Chris Eubank is a great fight, but at the same time there's the opportunity to possibly do Chris Eubank Jr. against Conor Benn, which is a huge fight. You can't hide away from the numbers that would potentially do. I'm sure, have you heard anything from Callis Howland, who promotes Chris Eubank Jr., saying it's done? No? Well, I guess then it's not done. I've never seen so many press releases for fights which are nearly signed but aren't signed, but someone's ready to fight, but they're fit, but their fight's not done, but are they fit? Oh yes, they are fit, they're 100% fit. It's a bit, like I said about the the thing you asked me about AJ. I don't want to say something until it's done. Because if you say something, everyone's like, wow, it's done, it's done, it's done. Perfect example. Nothing's done yet. So when it's done, you'll hear about it. On this side, nothing's done. We're discussing the potential of the Conor Benn fight. There are still things to be worked on, obviously. But I'm confident that the Smith-Eubank fight is not done. If that answers your question in a long-form answer to your question of what you asked me.
Okay, so you're the best man for these questions because you're so involved on both sides, right?
No, but I'm not, like, I don't represent Chris Eubank Jr. I have a very good relationship with Callis Howland. I speak to him every day, literally every day. We've worked together for a long, long time. And, we're discussing an opportunity on the other side. So he wouldn't bother wasting my time if that fight was done. I'm not saying that Eubank Smith doesn't happen, by the way. But I'm saying everyone's interested in making Eubank Benn if it's possible and wants to make that happen.
Okay, Eubank Benn. Eddie referred in an interview that it would either land in, he said, one of two places. He said Wembley Stadium or Tottenham Hotspur. You're of the opinion that if it happens, it's going to be Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, is that correct?
Yeah, Tottenham, yeah, for sure.
And what kind of date? Last week of September?
That's the plan. That's what we're working on now. Maybe the last couple of weeks of September.
Okay, so we are going to get something from UCAD, I take it, within the next 7 days. Is that fair?
That's look, that's ongoing that's the key point that's ongoing in the background. Obviously, if nothing happens on that front, that's where you'll see Smith against Eubank. But if we can make this fight happen and everyone's got the patience just to wait to see that, we're not saying we're going to do the show in the UK without Conor Benn being cleared. That's all. So all these people saying, no, it's a joke, he's not. No. If he's out, if he's free to do it, then this fight can happen in the UK. And they're the discussions we're having now.
My follow-up from that then is, if Eubank Smith goes ahead, Conor Benn, where do you go from there? Is it Pacquiao back on? What's the play if that does happen?
Maybe. Look, there's a lot of fights for Conor Benn because he built a huge, even bigger name for himself off the back of an unfortunate situation. He gets cleared. The potential of a Josh Taylor fight. Those two have been going at it. It's an interesting fight. There's loads of fights for Conor Benn though. Because he's put himself the way. His personality has put himself in that position to get those kind of fights. So, I'm not concerned about, from a Conor Benn perspective, when he can box in the UK, we're going to deliver major, major fights for him. And that's the plan.
Prograis Catterall, when can we get an announcement on that? Will it land in the US, UK? Is it done?
No, it's not done. I'm not Prograis Catterall. No. That's not done. It's one of the fights we're looking at. Obviously we promote both Regis and Jack Catterall, so it's definitely a fight we're looking at. Let's see how things play out there. I think Regis got some things with a WBC potentially, with maybe having a mandatory, so we'll have to see how things play out, but definitely want to deliver a big fight for Jack Catterall.
Last one from me. PBC have had a strong year so far. Does that make you and Matchroom more likely to come out with some US signings over the next couple of months, or is there people that you're talking to in the US that we might expect to see you sign with?
Look, we're always looking at signing new fighters. We just come off the back of Edgar Berlanga and Regis Prograis. Two back-to-back new signings that have joined Matchroom. We just signed Andy Cruz as well. There's talks about potentially bringing Devin Haney back as well. So we're always looking at new fighters. As you say, PBC have had a tremendous year, delivered some great fights, got a great schedule of fights, and it's good. It's good to have that competition. But we will always look to sign new fighters to add to the DAZN schedule.
Devin Haney, you mentioned there, is that a real possibility, and could we find out some news on that anytime soon?
Look, we're going back. Eddie's been discussing. We have a great relationship with the Haneys because we work with them for so long. So I definitely think there's potential there. He's a free agent. He's done tremendous things at such a young age in the sport. Gone out there and proved to everyone why he deserves to be in the position he's in. So yeah, he's someone we'd love to sign. Let's see.
This definitely is the last one. Frank Warren's comments last week about myself and Eddie's interviews in the US. Did you hear those comments?
No.
So he basically said that Eddie's paid for me to come out to the US, follow him around, interview him 4 or 5 times a day, push some sort of narrative to brainwash people. What do you make of those comments?
Narrative thing. He's just jealous. He probably doesn't do as many numbers as Eddie Hearn. Can't help that you and Eddie do a few numbers, but Eddie with anyone does a few. Sorry, not taking anything away from you, Colin, but Eddie with anyone does a few numbers, and it's not spreading a narrative. It's just answering questions. So it's not like we come on or Eddie comes on and just talks into a mic. Well, he does a lot of talking, but he answers questions that you ask. So you're not spreading any sort of narrative. I think it's all a load of bollocks, to be honest. It's a bit like Umar spreading the narrative that Frank wants him to spread. I love Umar, so don't take it personally, Umar. But it's the same on the other side, isn't it? He'll have that perception, but I think he turns up with a list of pre-prepared questions that Frank's got 84 A4 pages of answers for, isn't he? And if he gets a bit angry, he refilms it again. But, each to their own.
Frank Smith, I'll get chatting to you tomorrow the way and really appreciate it, mate.
Cheers, Colin.
Join us for the very first IFL Live at London's Indigo at the O2, Sunday, August the 13th, with me, Kugan Cassius, and some very special guests, Eddie Hearn, Darren Barker, Johnny Fisher, and more. Tickets now on sale. So in the words of Eddie Hearn,
You get up, you dress up, and you fucking show up.